Dan, I've got one big question.
Yeah.
What's this project all about?
Well, it's called Every Trick in the Book, and that's because I am taking every trick in a text that everybody knows in magic and performing and teaching them. Now, the choice that I've made is the Tarbell course in magic. So it's not just every trick in one book, it's every trick in the entire course in all 8 volumes. I'm going to perform them all and teach them all. And I'm updating everything too.
That's pretty amazing, which begs the next question.
Yeah.
Why?
well, okay, everybody knows the course, and you've got it in your library. If you've got a complete library of magic books, then you have this course. And it's been, well, almost 100 years, you know, as of this recording here, since the initial printing of the course. And so a lot of the material is kind of dated. Plus, many of it people haven't ever seen performed. It hasn't been performed, some of the things, in 50 or 60 years. And there are some hidden gems in there that people have forgotten about and haven't done at all. So part of what I want to do is to reach a new audience using the medium that we have now that I think is the best way to teach magic, so that you can actually see what it's supposed to look like in a performance and then get to see actually, you know, the behind-the-scenes explanation of it. It seems like the right time to do it, you know? Sure.
But I'm sure there's a lot of people watching this that are going to ask the same question I am. Are you crazy?
A little bit, yeah. No, I get that question. That's the question I get more than any other question. I've told a few people about this just when I started it, and that's the question that most of them said. Or they just came right out and said, "You are crazy." So a little bit, but I think that I'm crazy in a good way. I believe that everything that's good in magic eventually has to be taught in some sort of visual way, because we are visual artists. That's what we do. You know, it's a performance art. So it's nice to see everything eventually coming to video. And I'd rather have it done by somebody like me that spent a lot of time with the course, you know.
Sure, yeah, definitely. Yeah. It makes sense. Well, speaking of the course, here's one of the tough questions.
Sure.
What's the difference between a person who's a magician and a person who does tricks?
Well, it's right. No, it's good that you asked that, because that actually was Tarbell's intention when he put out the course, was to make magicians. And he described it really, really well, that anybody can do tricks, but a magician is somebody that understands all of these principles that we're going to be talking about in the course, and really has a foundation in being professional about it and understanding the science and the history of it, taking the time to practice everything. And we'll talk about that more as the course goes on. So there is a huge difference. It's basically, if you teach somebody how to do a trick, they can perform that trick, but that doesn't mean that they're a magician. They don't understand everything about being a magician, and being a magician takes a lot more effort and a lot more time to focus on it. Yeah.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Now, once you're a magician, there's a big difference between amateur and professional. Yes. What's the difference?
And it's not necessarily the skill level. Now, I make the distinction this way. An amateur, when you come right down to the definition of it, it's somebody who loves what they do. And that's really the terminology. A lover of something is an amateur. But we usually toss that term around to mean somebody who's not at the same caliber as a professional. So what I'd like to say is the main difference is that we have to make our living as professionals on this on the magic that we do. So we have to make sure that it works correctly every single time. Now, an amateur might be able to try this and try that and try out a few things, or move through a lot of tricks, you know, or always constantly trying to find something new to show to their friends. You know, and there's benefits to both of those things.
Sure.
Even as professionals, we're often looking for something new that we want to show to our friends, or to try out in our show or something like that. But very often, an amateur doesn't have the time to dedicate to one thing, to refine it so well that one thing is going to last them 20 or 30 years. Professional is always looking for that one thing they can put into their show that's solid, that's going to work for that length of time.
And ever,
yeah.
And because we get to change audiences all the time as opposed to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So what's your hope, like your main goal for this entire series?
Well, my main goal is the same as the goal was for the course, and that is to make magicians. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take every single trick and I'm going to revise it, I'm going to update it, I'm going to modernize it. Now, there's a lot of different things to each one of these effects, okay?
Wow.
So some of the effects have great methods, but they don't have great presentations. Some have great presentations, they don't have great methods. Some of them, you can't get the equipment anymore, so I'll show you how you can build it yourself. And some of them, between you and me, some of them aren't that good.
No, yeah.
Okay.
I've read the course.
Right?
I'm aware of that.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
As great as the course is, and it is fantastic, and it is filled with gems. When you see the gems performed, you recognize them. You know this is fantastic. And even with the great tricks, I'm still gonna try to find a way to even make it a little bit better. You know what made this trick perfect to begin with? Now we have some modern technology. We have better electronics. We have better magnets. We have just a better ability to present things and to find the things that we need to, and better ways to construct gimmicks. So even with some stuff that's still, that's great, I think there's a way that we can make it a little bit better. But with those that aren't so good, because I'm going to go through and I'm going to show you the best ones and I'm going to show you the worst ones. So there haven't been that many, to be honest with you, that are so bad that I'd have to scrap the whole thing. Even with those, I will show you what the original intention was, and then I'll say, well, obviously, this isn't the kind of thing that's going to play, but let's take the intention of the trick. Let's find something that we can do with what the person intended to be done with this trick. And I'll tell you, I've taken some of these things, these nuggets that looked like they were just, just awful and mangled. I've polished them up, I've chipped away things, and now they're bright, sparkling diamonds. There are some real interesting things.
So what
that
you're
I've been
telling me
able
is you're
to
going to
make.
Harlanize them.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome.
That's right.
So I'm thinking that there are some people watching this right now and they're thinking, but not me. I want to be clear on that.
Okay.
But there are some people that are probably thinking, why do you presume to be the person to do this?
Okay. All right. I've questioned myself about that, and then I've got a couple of answers. The first answer is, who else is going to be crazy enough to try it? That's the thing.
Excellent answer right there.
Yeah, right. Who else
Do you
wants
have more?
to? The second answer and the real answer is this: there are a lot of great magicians, and many of them are specialists. They do stage magic. They don't do any close-up. They do close-up magic. They don't do any stage. They do comedy strictly. They don't do anything serious. They don't do any manipulation. Manipulators that don't perform kids' birthday parties, and on and on and on like that. Now, I have always been a generalist when it comes to magic. I will do anything at all for any audience that's necessary, right? So you could book me for any crowd. Now, I've found different niches that work really well for me, but because I came into magic as an actor, I started in theater before I even became a magician, I find that I can approach any material like an actor would approach it. So I can write or learn a script, and I can learn the blocking and how to handle all the props and that kind of stuff. So for me, I think I'm uniquely qualified to dissect each one of the things, regardless of the genre of magic that it appears in, or mentalism, because there's tons of great mentalism too, and I can take those pieces apart and put them back together to make sure that I understand it, so that I can teach it very, very well to somebody else.
I was seriously hoping that was your answer, because I see you as that perfect jack-of-all-trades general practitioner who can cover every base.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And we should move right on and talk about the very first lesson.
We should start out where?
Yeah, we should talk about
Lesson one.
Lesson one, that's right.
History.
It's the history of magic. And magic has a very fascinating history. I know you've studied it, and of course we've read this book and a lot of other texts on it. It goes way, way back to ancient texts. One of the oldest first written appearances was an Egyptian court magician, and Didis and Neferu. And he did all kinds of things, with cutting the heads off of animals and restoring them, and all kinds of crazy stuff, right? And a lot of the ancient texts refer to the magician more as a magi, a wise man, a shaman, a fakir, that kind of stuff, and there's a lot of witchcraft and religion and superstition that's all involved in that.
It all starts building to the witchcraft and the supernatural.
Yes, right. Which is all great to understand that's where it all comes from. But we've gone through, thousands of years where when magic came into more civilized cultures, say in Greece and Rome and that kind of stuff, and they started to involve sciences with it, mechanical sciences, pneumatic and hydraulic sciences. They still kept that away from the public,
Well, to create power.
To create power,
Sure.
exactly. But they started to understand the principles that were at work, and then eventually they used those principles for other things that weren't necessarily magical, that became, advances in science.
Yeah.
Right? And then we got into kind of a cultural shift where the magician became more of an advisor as opposed to a priest in his own right. A character like Merlin, for example.
Perfect example.
Great example, where he was attributed with a lot of mystical and magical and witchcraft powers and things like that. But many people believe that if there was a historical Merlin, that he actually just studied, natural.
Yeah, he was mixing potions and looking at things and then going, here comes the eclipse, I'll use this to my
predicting
advantage.
eclipses, and earthquakes and things like that. So there's a lot of that mixture during that time, and then there was all of the backlash against witches.
Here comes the Puritans.
Right.
Time to burn us at the stake.
Yeah, and so in 1584, a great text was printed in English language. It's the first English language book that we know of.
English language book.
That's right.
Yeah.
That talks about magic. Now, it talks about magic and reveals some of the effects.
He didn't really design it to be a text to explain it. It wasn't meant to be a magic book.
It was meant to get people to stop killing us.
Exactly what it was meant to. We're not special. Don't burn us at a stake.
And it worked pretty well.
Thank heavens.
Yeah. There are very few performers that are put to death for performing card tricks anymore.
It's a good thing.
Well, I don't know.
Places,
Okay.
yeah, there are
some
a few
places
that should be.
We might go the other way. So from that book, then we get into a whole genre of street performing, and then people starting to take it into the theater, and probably the guy who really pioneered the modern magician,
Jean-Robert Houdin.
Yes, that's right. If you're not familiar with who he was a French magician, and his idea was to get rid of all of the weird robes and the mystical ceremonial symbols and things like that, and wear evening dress.
The dress of the time.
That's right, to fit in with the modern upper class, and to go into the best theaters, and to give all of his magic a scientific slant.
Oh yes, in the ethers.
Yes,
and, working with the limelights.
Yeah,
creating a different feeling.
Absolutely, and it was a sensation. And of course, he's still revered to this day among modern magicians. And if you visit France, you can actually see
his tomb is there.
His tomb is there, and
everything.
And
it's
there's
amazing.
a museum dedicated to it. It's
phenomenal.
Absolutely,
It really is.
So, at his time, we now have this very clear break from superstition, and we also get an interesting break between divination and conjuring, what we would call mentalism and magic now. Now, that break was very, very strong, and still it's strongly held by many, many people. They'll only do one or the other.
Yeah, the mentalists who are pure mentalists versus mental magic, that they've even divided that up to be the purists.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, there's a lot of mentalism, there's a lot of mental magic, and there's a lot of magic that I'll be going over in the course. So I'm not making any real distinction between how you want to use it or incorporate it in your show.
Presentational.
Absolutely, it's presentational. For me, I've found in my own work that I can mix it without a problem. I've also found in other people's works, and I'll just say this, it's my opinion, I've found that when people watch a mentalist, they're often leaving going, that was a great magic show. So it's just something for mentalists to consider, is that it's still perceived that you're performing magic, you just happen to be doing it in that genre.
Exactly.
Most of the time. Now, there are people who transcend all genres, and that's fine.
Become their own thing, an entity beyond their own.
Exactly, and I encourage everybody that gets into it to try as hard as you can to distinguish yourself.
Go for that goal and go that way.
Definitely. So what this ultimately comes down to in the history of magic is that it's really influenced a lot of modern sciences, and we're going to talk a little bit about the science of magic in the next lesson. But the modern sciences that it's influenced, medicine was really started as herbal healing, understanding how to mix these potions that were basically just, like mixing up modern medicine. Some of them worked.
And some of them didn't.
And some of them didn't. And the ones that didn't, they didn't use again. And the ones that worked, they made better and better over time.
He died because he didn't believe in my magic.
Yeah, exactly.
Ask him yourself.
And then the same kind of thing, like astrology started astronomy, and people still believe believe in astrology, and that's fine. You know, I'm a Libra, and so I don't believe in astrology. At least that's what they say my sign is supposed to.
I'm a Gemini, always the first to scream in a crowd. It's very special.
Yeah. And then, of course, alchemy led to the modern science of chemistry and so on and so forth, like that. Physics came from magic as well. So magic has really influenced a lot of critical things that have helped raise civilization to the modern style that it's in right now. So the one thing that you can take away from the history of magic from this first lesson is that magic is educational. Just in learning the secret behind a magic trick, you're actually learning some ancient wisdom that's influenced modern wisdom and modern technology. And very often we are on the cutting edge of technology as magicians, or at least we try to, because any sufficiently raised technology is perceived as magic.
What a great rule.
Right, yeah. But it doesn't mean that you have to use the most advanced technology. As a matter of fact, you'll find some magic tricks that use no technology at all.
And are perceived to be amazing technology.
That's right, exactly. And we'll get to those too. But the other thing to take away from this for you is that learning magic tricks will increase your reasoning powers, your ability to be more logical and to perceive things better and to understand some of these sciences. And it may interest you, you know, in pursuing, you know, mathematics or science or something like that. It did me. A lot of my magic is based in mathematics, recreational mathematics that has to be then turned into something entertaining.
Definitely.
Yeah. So you'll see when we do some of the tricks coming up in the first few lessons that they are influenced by these, and you'll learn a lot of stuff. It's really always interesting to go, wow, that works on that principle. You know?
It's great.
Yeah.
That's an excellent first lesson.
Yeah.
So, chapter 2.
Yeah.
Lesson number 2 is magic as a science.
Yes.
But he really doesn't mean it as a science.
No, he doesn't mean it as the kind of science that we were talking about in lesson 1. He means basically breaking down the performance of magic into all of the things that are necessary to know that are beyond, say, the mechanical part of it, beyond knowing the trick and the secret. So what is the other part of magic that can be looked at scientifically is basically what he's saying. And it comes down to this. He says that you could be very, very talented and just learn a trick, and because you happen to be charming and happen to be talented and all that kind of stuff, people will enjoy it. But that doesn't mean that you're doing the best job that you can if you don't understand the structure of how to present a trick. If you don't know the best way to present it. Basically, I say it this way, that the people that are more successful are the people that work harder. So we want to teach you to work twice as hard, but also twice as smart. So you're working in the right direction.
Yeah,
you know,
it's perfect.
Well, yeah, like if I was to give somebody a recipe, they could follow that recipe and prepare something, but that wouldn't make them a chef.
No, just means they followed the instructions to the letter.
That's right.
The more they do it, the better they become.
Yes, but then the more they understand why the recipe is the way that it is, then they might be able to apply it to other things. If they understood, you know, how to create their own recipe, now they're getting closer and closer
to be
being
a chef.
That's right.
Definitely.
But there are many, many steps that you have to go through. You have to learn some fundamentals. Then you have to learn, you know, for ours performance, you have to learn how to perform, how to script things, you know, on and on. There's many, many things. So let's talk about
so
a few
many
of them.
levels.
Let's talk about some of the fundamentals. And the reason you want to learn fundamentals is because these are based on very, very sound theories and principles of theater that have been proven over time to work.
So what you're saying is learn from the people who already made mistakes.
That's right. Yeah, you don't have to make the same mistakes that everybody else has made. You know,
someone else did it for you.
Somebody did it for
Why
you,
not
and
take
they
advantage
said,
of it?
They said, "Don't do this." So we're going to tell you some of the positive things, not the don't do this, but definitely do this. So let's tell them some positive things. First of all, having a professional attitude toward what you do, and by that, I mean that you have to study. So you don't just passively watch what you're doing, you know, don't just watch these videos, don't just read a book and not try. Think about, as you're watching it, what you're seeing, what you're experiencing. Think about reading more. Dissect it, study further into it. If something interests you, you can do more research into it.
Pursue in that direction.
Absolutely,
Definitely.
yeah. So that's the first thing. So study everything. And then practice. Practice is very, very important. every time that you see something that you want to learn, just stop the video and learn it. Just learn it.
And practice it correctly. Because
That's right.
practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes permanent.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And you've got to practice consistently. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later because practice is important every time. It gets more and more important the closer you get to performance.
Certainly.
And then be aware of details, of all of the details. Now, many times I'm going to point out all of the details that I think are important, but you might see other ones.
Sure.
When you develop your own material, you don't want to just gloss over everything. You want to think about every single little detail. You want to think about where things are placed, and at what time you introduce things, and
Pocket management.
And
I can't believe I put 2 things there.
That's right, and even down to the color of the props you
Exactly.
use, to the size of each of the props.
That old adage, the devil's in the details.
Absolutely
It really is.
right. Yeah, because the devil that Shawn's talking about is the one that will sneak up on you at the most
Bite you.
unexpected moment, and you don't want that to happen. So if you pay attention to those details, you'll be able to eliminate a lot of problems.
Definitely.
and focus people where you want them to be focused. Naturalness of both performance and action, and that's a real challenge.
It really is, because everybody wants to be somebody else. They admire somebody and they try to emulate them.
Right.
And it's a hard thing to learn to just be natural.
Yes. Now, if you're brand new to magic, emulate all of the greats.
Yeah,
until
totally.
you understand
find
it. Until you find it, and then definitely break away from it and develop yourself. Now, if you've been in magic for a long time and you see something that you want to do, don't do it exactly like I do it, or exactly like Shawn does, or exactly like the guy that you saw do it. Find out what it is that you love about it, and use that same kind of a concept.
Use that naturalness of your own abilities to make it you.
Right. And then the naturalness of movement. When you're doing sleight of hand or when you're concealing things, you might have a tendency to tighten up, and that's why you've got to practice all the time. And that's why I told you we're going to get back to practicing. You have to practice consistently. And that means when you're working on something new, you have to practice it on a schedule. So you practice whatever it is for half an hour or an hour, and then the next day you do the same thing. You don't want to tire yourself out in practice.
Yeah,
because
you
it
don't
doesn't do
become
you any
bored
good.
of it.
That's right, and it's like practicing any skill. If you're into sports or if you're into music, you have to
Still got to
those
relax
as well.
the muscles.
That's right, but you can't do that 24 hours a day. You've got to do it at the right time and then consistently. So you can do half an hour of solid practice on something, then maybe practice something else for half an hour, and that's good for your day, and then do that the next day and next day and next day, and on like that. Now, as you get closer and closer to the show, practice really only goes for moves, specific parts of the pieces that you're doing. You then have to put it all together and rehearse it. And a rehearsal is an entirely
Totally different thing.
animal.
I'm so surprised when people say I'm going to practice when they really mean I'm going to rehearse,
Yes.
and they say they rehearse when they really mean they're going to practice.
that's right.
Rehearsal is its own beast.
It's its own beast, and the beast starts out this way, just so you know. You set up all of the props that you need for that one particular routine, and then, whether people are there or not, whether you have somebody helping you or not, you say everything that you're going to say and do everything that you're going to do.
Move every move.
Move every move and everything until you're done with that piece. Now, that's just rehearsing one piece, one routine. When you really get down to a performance, you're going to have to put together more than one piece. So if you're going into this and even going to do it semi-professionally or want to go full-time professionally, when you get ready to put on your show, you have to rehearse the whole thing from start to end, absolutely everything. And a rehearsal doesn't mean that you just walk through it, and it seems okay, and that kind of stuff. No, you set it up and you perform it. So if your show...
invisible audience.
To the invisible audience. Now, I had a technique that I helped with a few people, and you're going to think this is a joke, but you should do this. If you have any stuffed animals, even just one,
Awesome.
you set it up across the room and you perform it. Now, if you have more stuffed animals, it's better, because eventually you're going to be in front of an audience and they'll all be staring at you. What you need are those beady little eyes looking at you. Then they just look. That's the best thing about stuffed animals. They're not blinking.
It kind of freaks you out.
But it's a good kind of attention too, because they will constantly watch what you do, so it motivates you to actually want to perform for them. I know it sounds silly, but you got to do some of these tricks to try it. So you rehearse the whole show, and you can't do it just once. A rehearsal means you're going to run it multiple times until you're no longer thinking about
It becomes rote.
Yeah,
and all you're thinking about is
absolutely.
performing. You're getting that whole ride.
One of the biggest challenges about being a performer is that you have to enjoy it so much that it takes you a long time to get bored with the material on your own, because at that point you know it's ready for an audience, and the audience brings the excitement.
They bring it back to you.
Bring it right
and
back.
then your joy is all in their joy, not in yours.
Yeah,
If you're doing
absolutely.
it and still enjoying it and having fun with it, then you're probably still learning it. It's got to be to the point where I can do this chestnut in my sleep, and then you can really enjoy the way they experience it.
So when you're rehearsing, it was the old wisdom that you would rehearse in front of a mirror or practice in front of a mirror, and it's still good, especially if you're doing just like a move, something like that. But now we have great video technology. It's available for absolutely anybody, and I highly recommend, especially when you get to routining something and you're going to perform the whole routine, set yourself up a video camera and watch the whole thing. And then I have suggestions on how to watch yourself. When you play that video back, turn the sound off, because you want to watch the way that you look, your facial expressions and your gestures and those kinds of things. Those are important. You want to watch the moves to make sure that it's not just that you're verbally distracting people, that you're also using good psychology on them. And then, after you examine all of that, because most of your communication is nonverbal communication, so you're really communicating a lot just through your gestures and through your face.
Actions and face.
Yeah. And so after you do that for a little bit, then turn it back on, but don't watch the video. Just listen. That's the hardest part.
Oh,
it's also going to be
painful
and disappointing most of the times when you do it for the first time. We laugh because we've shared the pain,
Exactly.
right? If you can, write down everything that you say. It's going to be very challenging for you to write down everything that you say the first few times that you do it, because most of the time when you're new at this, and some people that aren't that new at this, they don't say interesting things, even though they're doing interesting things.
They're winging a script that they've never created.
That's right. And that brings me to the next point. Script. You've got to know what you're going to say. And the thing is, even if you don't have a prepared script, even if you don't take the time to write it down, as soon as you're in front of an audience, you are delivering a script.
You are, no matter what. Even if you
They're
only build
hearing you
little
say something.
bullet points, they're hearing you do a script.
They're seeing you do something, and it's theatrical. That means there's a script. Now, your script may be extemporaneous, impromptu, improvisational, and that's fine. But the best improv groups are the ones that rehearse the improv that they're going to present.
I don't think most people know that
You may not know
improv
that.
is scripted.
Yeah.
It's important.
That's right. It's within a framework of scripting. And so you can do the same thing. What I like to do is I like to know exactly what I'm going to say and exactly what I'm going to do, and that allows me to deviate from it if I need to or if I want to, because things will happen in a live performance and you've got to be ready for them, and then you can get right back into your script.
I tell my friends when they say, it never seems like you say the same thing twice. And I don't have the script, but I have the script.
Sure.
I know exactly where I need to go, and I do it maybe a little different every time, but the feeling's exactly the same every time.
You get from an important point to an important point to an important point.
Link together.
They link together very quickly, and there's not that dead space in between them. If you understand that your script is merely a progression of action and words, then you'll be able to get from the beginning to the middle to the end, very, very easily.
Precisely.
Yeah. So, and that all comes down to this: know your routine from beginning, middle to end. I highly recommend that a few of the times that you're rehearsing, that you do it as quickly as you possibly can. So it's going to be off tempo because you're going to speed it up. But if you do that, and I do it a lot with my things, if you speed it up so much that that you can just do it, when you get to a performance and now you bring the pace down to where it's reasonable, you will be so relaxed and so natural, the audience will absolutely love it.
You'll feel like you're going in slow motion.
That's right, but it'll feel
But you
great.
won't be.
You won't be. And I think that's a great way to get over nervousness, is everything that we've recommended to you. You'll get over stage fright, you'll get over your nervousness, you'll be able to communicate better with people just by applying the things that we've talked about. And it's all about professional attitude.
It truly is.
Professionalism. Yeah, it's very simple. So now we get into a different point. This is something that you hear all the time, and that's about never repeating a trick.
Really?
Yeah.
Why is that?
Well, because you could tell them.
This is my thought. I wanted to see if you're going the same direction.
Same
When I
direction.
was a young man, I worked in a magic shop, and my teacher, the owner of the shop, used to say, "Shawn, we only demo the tricks once, because once is a demo and twice is a lesson."
That's right. They'll be
Well,
watching for it, the second time around.
But you and I both know that we can have the same trick
Yes.
and multiple methods.
Right, and you'll see professional magicians deviate from this rule all the time. Here's why. When you're starting out with a trick, when you're doing it for the first time for people, you don't know exactly what's going to happen. You can do all the rehearsal, you can do all the planning, all that kind of stuff. So you don't want to repeat the new tricks for anybody the first few times. But as you develop and as you find the material that you love, that you can do over and over again for different audiences, you will also find that some of your effects become what we call bulletproof.
Yes.
Where you have multiple methods, multiple approaches, or the effect itself is so good that it bears repetition. As a matter of fact, you're going to see by the time we get to the end of Volume 1, in the last lesson in Volume 1, the last effect is a repeat effect. So even in the day that Tarbell was writing the things,
Said never repeat
a trick.
He teaches you a trick to
He teaches
repeat.
you one right there.
Exactly.
So there are exceptions to the rule, but you have to be very, very aware that if somebody is asking you, if you do something and you fool somebody and they say, do it again, it's not always a good idea to
Probably
do it
not
again.
the best time
Not
to do
the
it.
best time, yeah. It's usually a good idea to say, oh, I've got something else I can show you that's kind of cool, or maybe I'll show it to you again tomorrow. Think about that, and when you see me again, I'll show it to you, And then it gives you time to figure out how to do it a different way, or to fix any problems that you might have had the first time around. So,
Precisely.
Yeah, so great rule, but you can break that rule if you find a good way to do it. Now, let's talk about a positive attitude.
That's it.
Yeah, what's
Truly.
been called the power of suggestion, but the positive attitude is really suggestion that you give to yourself, and it works.
If you're afraid, if you have fear before you walk out on the stage, the audience is going to read it. You have to have confidence, not arrogance, confidence.
Right.
You have to believe that you want to have a good time. I don't believe I've ever seen a performer walk out with an angry look on their face and think that anybody is going to love them.
No.
You walk out happy, proud, excited to be there.
Yeah.
They're going to be I don't think there's an audience that ever wants to see you fail. So go with a positive attitude.
Yeah, this is the thing. I tell a lot of people this, that the audience is on your side from the very beginning.
Yeah. You can lose them.
But you can lose them.
Totally.
People want to be entertained. They want to experience something that's unusual and exciting and interesting. They
Sure.
really like that.
They
And
came
so,
to see
yeah.
you, even if it's just across the room.
Right.
They came to see you. They want to experience that magic, and you have this opportunity. So don't let them down by feeling like you can't do it. Instead, feel great about it and make it a positive experience.
Yeah, and one thing that I always remember, and this was told to me by my girlfriend, very, very, very smart technique. So I'm going to give it to you guys. I'm going to let you know, and that is always keep a diamond in your mind. Now, what that means is not that you're going for the money, but always just remember that what you're creating is this sparkling jewel of perfection, both in yourself and in the audience. And if you just keep that phrase, there's a great song, by the way, look it up, always keep a diamond in your mind. No matter what goes wrong in your life, keep a diamond in your mind. It'll keep a smile on your face, it'll keep you happy, it'll keep everybody else happy. It's just a nice kind of visualization technique.
I have a whole different expression with diamond, and because a lot of people feel a lot of pressure backstage, and they start getting that anxiety, and the butterflies start going. And I always say, just remember, pressure makes diamonds.
Yeah.
It really does. Embrace it. Just
That's right.
take it in and go with it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That'll help everybody.
It's all diamonds.
Yeah, it is. And then if you have a positive attitude, you can instill that in your audience.
It's infectious.
It's infectious.
It truly is.
And they will, at that point, they will have a willingness to accept what you do. And what that means is they will be willing to believe that what you're doing is at least real for the time that you're doing it.
Yeah, you're not challenging them.
No.
You're opening them up, and they just go, let's go for a ride.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just like people going to the theater, to the movie theater, or watching a great television program or something like that. They invest themselves in the action and in the story and in the characters.
They know that character doesn't really fly,
well,
but they
yeah,
accept
yeah.
it because it becomes part of their reality for a
right.
short period of time.
Yeah, that's right. And it's the same thing. They may know deep down in their subconscious mind, they may know you're not really performing magic, but they will believe it, and they'll even keep up that willingness of belief after the show's done. And that's great, because as long as they're happy and you're happy and everybody's had a good time, you're giving them a great sense, a joie de vivre.
Yeah, power of positivity.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's important in that way. And then since we're already talking about getting into people's minds, let's talk about how we get into their imaginations through their senses. Okay. Most of the time, people are just watching magic. Magic is a very visual experience.
The visual stimulation, but there are other ways. Sensory.
That's right.
The smell.
Yeah, and absolutely, and that one's. Let's save that, because you may not quite grasp that you could put that kind of sense into it, smelling and tasting, but hearing things.
Oh yeah.
Pretty easy to understand if you're working with coins or cards. They can hear that. They can hear the coins. There are even sensory illusions, where they'll believe that coins are over here because they can hear them jingling, but you're creating that noise with something else. And you'll see how that psychology helps a lot.
Works a lot.
And then feeling, when people are involved in the magic, when something happens with them or in their hands, or even just on stage, you touch somebody to bring them in, gestures like that. So you can actually get them to be closer to the magic through engaging their senses. And then, like you were saying, we
hardest
both,
of them all.
Yeah, well, we both use some other sensory experiences. Like any time on stage that I've had to burn somebody's money, I like to do it with a little bit of lighter fluid. And so you get the smell of that. You know that it's a real flame that you've experienced before.
It wafts out over the audience.
Yeah.
They smell that fuel. It creates a different feeling.
Yeah, absolutely.
Total
and then you
different
were saying a thing about, you told me earlier, when you're cutting open a lemon.
Tasting. When you have a spectator, I don't cut the lemon because I could cut myself. No, I give the sharp implement to the spectator, and as they cut, they have lemon juice on their hand. Now, when I take it back and I'm removing the bill, they have this lemon juice, and you can see that they touch and for some reason they want to taste and go, it was a lemon.
It's a lemon.
And then when you give them the bill, they can smell the bill, they can feel the bill. It's wet, it's tactile. It's a whole different experience for that one person. It's a memory that'll last a very long time because they've got it with more than one sense. All these things happening at the same time.
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, there's a famous act that we'll talk about later. Actually, I believe it's in Volume 2. We're going to talk about Think a Drink Hoffman. And a lot of his act was visual, but also tasting. People would name a drink, and he'd pour them all out of the same pitcher of water. They would change instantly.
Visually, you're only looking at the color of a glass, but as soon as they taste it, there's the magic.
And then it becomes real. So, so it's great to connect with their senses like that. And now, by connecting with those senses, we get into probably the most challenging thing to learn in the realm of magic that is critical to magic, and that's misdirection.
Yeah, which is not really misdirection.
And that's why it's so difficult to learn, because the wrong terminology has been applied to it for so many years that we still have to use that so we know what we're talking about. But really all it is direction.
The right way. I want you to look here. Why do we say we're misdirecting when really we're trying to push them to a direction?
That's right. So if you think that you're trying to misdirect people, then you're constantly trying to pull them away from something or hide something. And that's not what it's about. No, the idea is to direct them to something that's more interesting.
Create focus, not switch focus.
That's right.
Create it.
That's right. And you do that by connecting to the senses that we've just talked about. So if you have to conceal something, it would be in something that you're not looking at as opposed to something that you are looking at. And we'll get heavily into that as we talk about all of the effects. But the real secret of it is to find what's interesting for the audience to watch and listen to see and experience, and they will go in that direction, and that allows you to hide everything else without having to do it too actively or too forcefully.
Yeah, straight in their face.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, all of this stuff comes down to a couple of very simple points, and that is that through using all of these techniques, magic helps you to develop confidence in yourself and your personality.
Yeah.
And I know it's helped both of us in our lives.
Totally.
Yeah. I was kind of a nerdy, big brain, awkward kid.
I was the kid that traveled from one city to the next and couldn't play sports and was ugly.
Yeah.
So, oh look, there's a new kid to
picked
beat
on
up.
by the new,
Sure.
all this stuff. Yeah. So, so for us and for many, many people, it's not a replacement. It's accents who we are, because it's what we love, and we can share what we love with other people, and that gives us a human connection that is really great to give us the confidence to just talk to people, to just have fun with them, to just get to know people, Yeah. And that's really
It's a whole different world.
A whole different world, and as long as you don't overuse it.
Yeah.
This is the thing. Don't ever overstay your welcome. You want to create a lasting impression with people, and that means that
when you're hot,
when
you're hot.
When you're hot, you're hot. And that's the thing. You want people to want to see you again. That's the impression you want to give them. That you're friendly, that what you do is interesting, and that they want you to be around more.
So the important thing to learn is
is
know when to
know when to stop.